Welcome back to the Crypto's Key conversation. We're going to jump straight into the topics in this video here. We're going to start with this one from Digital Asset Investor, and this is some more stuff on the whole Prometheum and Aaron Kaplan stuff. And I'm bringing this up again in this video because Cowboy Crypto had put some more stuff out here in regards of his connection. Now we found out he has a father who has some connections, which makes sense as why he has the access that he has. So let's take a quick listen into this one right here. It says, were Senator Elizabeth Warren and friends feeding witnesses information on the questions that would be asked ahead of time? Again, men, remember we showed a video of Chairman Gensler answering these questions where he was supposed to be put under the microscope from Senator Warren, and we come to find out though her and her party were sending him the questions and giving him suggested answers how to respond to those questions when he came to so-called sit in the hot seat. He pretty much, Aaron Kaplan from Prometheum was asked if he was pretty much like, hey, were you fed the questions, because we seen that you were reading from your document there, like were you they're pretty much asking, hey, did you get the Gensler treatment? So let's take a quick listen into this.
Did you coordinate in any way with either the SEC or House representative staff before your appearance at that hearing?
I think it's pretty standard for there to be some communication between the entities that invite you, and in that capacity, we were somewhat aware of the topics they would cover, but we didn't really know the exact questions.
Peep the smile on this dude's face, man. He's like, wow, just shameful.
Okay. There were times during your testimony when it looked like you were reading your answers. What were you reading?
Basically, I had thought I had prepared good responses and was looking in my notes. Obviously, we had prepared extensively to testify, and there was a lot I wanted to make sure to cover. So I wanted to make sure in looking at my answers that I was proper and thorough in my responses.
Okay. And so none of the representatives previewed any of their questions for you?
Again, we were aware of the topics they covered, but we did not know the exact questions.
Pretty much saying, yeah, I'm not going to answer that, but definitely we were fed some information. So coming over here, Cowboy Crypto had found some stuff. It says, quote, founded by former chief attorney of the SEC Division of Enforcement, it says Gusra, I'm assuming Gusra Kaplan, is one of the prominent security law firms in the United States. No wonder Prometheum skated right through the SEC. Kaplan's daddy is ex-SEC enforcement. Even Prometheum's CCO is ex-SEC. And then he has this screenshot here. Obviously, he has the date, the 14th of September 2013 through the 4th of December 2018, right? And he highlights this information here. It's just more connections. And then coming over here, Cowboy Crypto has this as well. Shout out Cowboy Crypto, by the way. It says Prometheum's founder, Aaron Kaplan, is also an attorney at his dad's law firm, as we all know. Not only is his dad former high-ranking SEC enforcement attorney, they also have a former New York Mercantile Exchange CME Group executive, as well as former NASD. CME Group recently launched options on its existing U.S. dollars to yuan futures in April, saying it reflects the growing global influence of Chinese yuan. Quote, in June of 2022, MIAX announced a partnership with Luca to launch BTC and ETH futures and options, which would be listed on MGEX via CME Globex, which is owned by Terry Duffy's CME Group. Major investors in Luca is MIH and the Soros Fund Management. So there goes that Soros name popping up again. So it's crazy how the community just keeps, putting out more information, connecting more dots, and this web is just getting completely massive. When it comes down to what Digital Asset Investor was saying, when the whole Terra Luna and Do Kwon and the whole Sam Bankman-Fried FTX stuff came out, he reiterated, this isn't bigger than ETHGate. ETHGate is everything, and it's literally, we can see it. It's happening. We're getting, a bigger piece of the picture, if you will. Coming over some more shady stuff in this whole narrative that these, we'll just say, in my opinion, these shady people. We have former chairman Jay Clayton here. This is the gentleman that obviously dropped the lawsuit against Ripple, right? As he walked out the door, Cameron Winklevoss says, a must-watch. Former SEC Chairman Jay Clayton describes the new and deeply un-American ethos of the SEC Gov under Gary Gensler. If we're not losing cases, we aren't suing enough businesses. This is the total abuse of power. So let's listen into this.
a very high level on the regulatory side, what you're hearing from the leaders of the regulatory organizations is if we're not losing cases, if we're not being pushed back on by the courts, we're not doing enough. Think about that for a second. That is a fundamental shift in how we as Americans view the role of the government. I don't want to be in a place where I know the government is going to bring cases they think they're going to lose. Imagine you're the person who is the subject of that case. Now, we're talking about corporations.
Yeah, to see if they can. And if they're not stopped, they're going to, yeah.
Right, but this is an ethos now, which is unless we're losing, we're not bringing enough cases. That may be fine for private litigants against each other and think about it. But when you have the power of the state and you're supposed to only bring cases and only make rules that you think are going to pass judicial muster.
See, here's the thing that I think about when I see this, right? Obviously, Jay Clayton seems like he's trying to save face. We all know you dropped the lawsuit as you walked out the door against Ripple, right? We all know that, right? The thing is if this is really the logic and I guess you could say the tagline for the SEC, if we're not losing cases or having pushback from the judges in the judicial system, we're not bringing enough or we're not suing enough businesses. How is that even like appropriate or legal? These are people that are represented, that are supposed to be representing the everyday population, right? Taxpayer dollars fund their seats and their jobs. And this is their, as he says, their ethos. It literally validates everything that we've been bringing up in the community, man. It's completely shameful. And the fact that this gentleman's saying that after what he did, it's crazy, man. Digital Asset Investor says, same day Consensus revamps its website to change its image, right? Literally listen to what he said. Revamps, change its image. That's literally what he's doing. He's starting this whole interview and narrative and this tour of like, oh, let me go ahead and save face. Let me go ahead and say these things and kind of talk a little bit against Chairman Gensler and the current SEC and all these different things. Like, bro, we know you were a part of it to some degree. I mean, in my opinion, based on the information that's out there, and it's just shameful. And then you got Consensus revamping its website. Come on, man. It's all out there. We can just, Wayback Machine it. We have a bunch of videos, audio clips, documents, screenshots. We have everything. So it's like you can't hide from the truth. What did they say? The truth shall set you free. And that's just the truth. And here's the thing. I really hope when all this thing, I guess they say when the dust settles or when the dust clears, I really hope there is true justice when it comes to all the shady stuff that's happened. I highly doubt, we're going to get to know who all the disguised whales were and the ETH ICO and all the shady actors. And I doubt, I'm sure that's going to be like hidden lost fossils, if you will. But I really hope there is some sort of justice for, the everyday investors that were truly hurt through all this shady stuff, man. And all I can do is pray and continue to make videos and spread the word, really. This is from John Deaton, pertinent to this video of Jay Clayton. It says, this is exactly what the judge in the Ripple case was alluding to when she said SEC lawyers were not maintaining a faithful allegiance to the law. You are supposed to have a good faith basis to being a case, meaning you believe you can win by applying the law. You don't wait until a judge tells you otherwise. Shameful on the SEC Enforcement Director and Gary Gensler. 100% agree, man. He literally hits it on the head. And you have Fred Rispoli going right here. Look, he says, Jay Clayton starts his public image rehabilitation tour. Who's buying it? No one's buying it, man. No one's buying it. It's shameful. Oh, look at old Joe Lubin from Consensus here. So it says this from Digital Asset Investor says Joseph. Come on, dude. Joseph Lubin explaining that it just quote doesn't matter if Gary Gensler thinks Ethereum is a security. Listen to this.
Just in terms of what you would say to regulators that are trying to say that Ethereum is a security and should be treated as such.
Well, regulators have spoken. The SEC has spoken. Bill Hinman made a speech, I think it was in mid-2018. It was disclosed that I think 18 of his colleagues at the SEC worked on the speech with him. So the SEC actually spoke. The CFTC has spoken very crisply. These are U.S. agencies, very crisply a number of times that they consider Ether a commodity and not a security. And so it's really a foregone conclusion at this point. There may be a regulator or two in the United States that can't bring himself to utter the fact that Ether is not a security, but I don't know why that's the case, and ultimately that just doesn't matter.
The fact that like he still like has that smirk and laugh or whatever smile on his face after everything, all the inside stuff behind the closed doors and backdoor deals, and just the shady arrogance, and obviously him lining his pockets and his company's pockets and the investors, and then disguising the wealth. And we found out, obviously we don't know 100% for sure, but there's been articles and other media projects that came out saying, he in consensus may own a fat majority of the Ethereum token, right? So is he really, he and his buddies and his company, really the disguised wells, majority of the disguised wells, man. It's crazy that this gentleman can do that, man. These people have no shame, man, and it's crazy. It's literally, and there's people like us, and everyday people that are really just trying to make a life for their family, right? Just want to have a fair chance and in a sense an equal opportunity to take risk, and take selective and educated risks to change the financial course of their lives, man. And you got gentlemen like this that manipulate the game to where we get wrecked. I mean, that's just the reality, man. Look at the whole ETHgate and dropping a lawsuit on Ripple. Look at the XRP community, man. There's people that were truly like devastated in a sense. No, really, I'm just going to say devastated by that, right? I know for myself and my family and my boys, like I had plans, financial plans that were affected just for me investing in that asset, right? In our community, we have people talking about, man, I lost my my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, and I had plans to, help them pay for medical expenses and buy them houses and do all these different things, right? But you have shady people that are already loaded as it is, manipulating and conflicts of interest and just shady, shameful corruptness, ruining that. It makes me sick, man. Like, dang. This is from Mr. Huber. Says, Lubin can hardly remember when exactly Hyman gave the speech, but knows immediately and without any doubts that exactly 18 SEC employees worked on the drafts. Even I did not know that exact number. And that's the thing. He has that selective memory, if you will. Mr. Huber hit on the head there. And I wanted to touch on this because this is from Meta Lawman. It says crypto litigation update. So he's big on like updating us as to, how, I guess it's not necessarily timelines, but kind of what's happening in the markets and how it's going to affect the markets when it comes to, the litigation that's actually ongoing right now. So he says a lot will happen in crypto court cases in the next several months. Each court decision that comes down potentially impacts other pending cases. Here's a status report and upcoming deadlines in some of the key cases. So I'm not going to read through all these, but it says SEC versus Ripple, SEC versus Bittrex, SEC versus Genesis and Gemini, SEC versus Coinbase, SEC versus Binance, FTX bankruptcy. You have Coinbase versus SEC, NYAG and KuCoin, HODL Law and SEC, Grayscale versus SEC, Voyager bankruptcy, Celsius bankruptcy, US Trustee versus FTX, and so on. But pretty much he's saying like, a lot of these cases are going to build off each other. So, whether you have resolutions on certain cases, when you get verdicts and documents that come from other cases, other, attorneys and lawyers within, actually ongoing litigation can, pull from that and say like, hey, here's kind of what's happening in this case, and this is how it affects our case and stuff like that. So I like that Meta Lawman always comes out and sheds his legal minds and opinions as to what's happening in our market. So we're going to keep tabs on what he's saying. This is from Wheezy X. I hope you've been paying attention from Crypto Law and John Deaton. He's been putting out some solid stuff, kind of informing us as to what's going on with the Ripple versus or SEC versus Ripple case. He says Deaton says nothing nefarious going on in the SEC versus Ripple case, nor Judge Torres is on SEC payroll. So a lot of people have been speculating as like, man, what's taking so dang long? And man, it seems like maybe these judges are corrupt like the SEC and Chairman Gensler, and they're part of the payroll, and it's all a charade and a part of their narrative. Like, who knows? If JD's saying we are lucky to have the judges presiding over the case that we're undergoing, then I'm going to take his word for it, man. Because quite honestly, I feel like he was saying in his videos, like, why would the judge have the release of the Hyman documents? Why would the judge say they have an unfaithful allegiance to the law? You know what I'm saying? The judge has literally been smacking the SEC in the face and calling out their foolery and their shadiness, right? So I'm going to take JD's word for it, man. I just wanted to share that. This is from Benjamin Cowan. I like to kind of talk about different people's technical analysis, their opinions on things, and just kind of, I guess, express them to you guys so you guys can kind of make what you want of it. But Benjamin Cowan says, I still think ETH and Bitcoin is in the process of collapsing. So he puts this up and he kind of has this yellow thing here. And there's been, people speculating as to, we need more downside until we, get ready to turn the page, if you will. I know there's a couple people I follow that have that same narrative. But, it's kind of just a waiting game to kind of see what happens. He also says this. He says, a good chance the yearly high is already in for BTC or close to it. Any moves higher just gets alt and Bitcoin pairs even more wrecked. So what's crazy about that, you have this right here. It says MicroStrategy acquires additional 12,333 Bitcoins and now holds 152,333 BTC. And this is Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy. So it's quite interesting that, they're continuing to accumulate. And this dude is literally the ultimate Bitcoin maxi. I mean, that's crazy. He's just stacking, right? Will Clemente put something up interesting. It says, concerns about how much Bitcoin Saylor owns are silly. The guy is clearly not voluntarily selling anytime soon. No individual controls more of the network than anyone else, no matter how much they own. We likely see larger positions from nation states in the future. Good points, man. I mean, he has some good points, man. Pretty much saying, hey, stop the FUD. Stop overthinking it. JD right here, I'm going to end on this one. He says, I never filed a shareholder class action lawsuit against a company, so please take that under consideration as I think out loud. Dangerous to do on Twitter. I agree Saylor clearly has no intent on MicroStrategy voluntarily selling Bitcoin anytime soon. But MSTR hodls, I'm sure that's the ticker symbol for MicroStrategy, says hodls 152,333 BTC acquired for $4.52 billion at an average price of $29,668 per Bitcoin. At what point, if any, does a fiduciary duty to shareholders require selling some Bitcoin, thus protecting the original $4.5 billion expenditure of the capital to acquire BTC? When Saylor BTC hits 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, my understanding is that Saylor has 70% of the voting power. Maybe this has been addressed before. So he brings up some good points there. I'm curious to see how this actually plays out and how that works for MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. That's interesting. But hey, it is what it is. I just kind of wanted to share that. We're currently sitting at a 54 in the Bitcoin Fear Greed Index. Bitcoin sitting at 30,158. Ethereum sitting at 1835. XRP sitting just shy of 46.5 cents. Yeah, that's what I have for you. Make sure you come to the Crypto's Key Conversation YouTube channel. Subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Crypto'sKey1. Really appreciate your support out there. With all that being said, stay strong out there and be safe.